every time we have a piece by one of these artists, people want to find out more. So when you get all of these artists together, there's an energy that's created, and all of these artists are also connected to ArteAmericas. They've supported ArteAmericas, so they are all kindred to each other, to the spirit of what we're doing here, the mission of ArteAmericas. So it's very, very exciting. There are these threads, and it's really incredible and beautiful that those threads have brought you here today. So what I want to do is I want to introduce you to some of the artists that are here featured in the exhibition. And I just have three simple questions here, so everybody will just answer the same questions. And continuing, I'd like to bring Richard Gomez up, to one of our compadres from Merced. We have several compadres from Merced who are here connected with ArteAmericas through various ways. And Richard is a professor at UC Merced and has been helping us as well to connect our artists here locally with the artists over there. So, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Gomez.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Frank. Thank you to artists and to the Fresno community. This place is fantastic, and I'm really honored to be part of the show with a lot of interesting artists from all over. I've been really wanting to show at this place for a while, so thank you for the opportunity. So these questions in front of me: where do you live? I live in Atwater. I am originally from the Central Valley, so I like to say that I live in the Central Valley. I live in the valley. I did live down in Southern California for a while, and I would say that I'm from the valley, and that kind of was misinterpreted. They're like, you're from the valley? Really? Yeah. But here in the Central Valley, I mean, if you're from Modesto or if you're from Fresno, or where I'm at, Atwater, Turlock, and Merced, there's red, blue. So what I like to do is just claim the Central Valley because there's no distinction of all the various other groups that claim different territories. What inspires your artwork? So I think if we all kind of, the more true that we are to ourselves and where we come from and who we see ourselves, the more that we plant ourselves in our own native soil, the more real our art is. And so I kind of like to say that my art is very, I have an academically trained background, but I've been trying to kind of unlearn some of that and adopt some of these modern materials such as spray paint. So I'm now kind of finding this balance of tradition and modern street art techniques and kind of combining the two. So I'm enjoying kind of playing with a lot of different things. And what inspires my art is, I mean, I think like is where we are right now in this world, man. Politics, culture, identity, American identity, how we see all that. When the Mexican Renaissance came out, the workers of Guerreros Orozco and all those guys, they were also faced with this real political climate that was happening. And they chose to have a very, very specific cause for their art, you know, to kind of tackle these social issues. And I kind of see this kind of renaissance happening now where people who could care less about politics are now very political and have very strong views. You know, so things are changing and it's hot right now, so I think it's very interesting times to be an artist. What is next? What's next for me? So on my way here, I passed by that AT&T building. There's a nice big wall there. I'd like to paint there. So I do a lot of community street art where we engage the communities directly and have hundreds of people paint on the wall. But as the master artists go on there on top and kind of still make it look very together, very clean, and have very strong imagery, but still have that community engagement. I would like to do a lot more of that. locally here in the Central Valley, really make the Central Valley more of a spot that doesn't have like this negative stigma that that people from the Bay or from Southern Cal have when they think of the Central Valley. We're trying to bring a lot of this kind of urban culture into our area. And Fresno's very, I heard that if Fresno was in other states, it would be like the biggest city. But because this is California, we have, Fresno's bottom, it's not the top of the list. So my dream project would be to do a mural just keep doing murals all over the world. That would be fantastic. I'm also part of this nonprofit called Artevolution. So if you want to see what I kind of am part of as well as Artevolution, artevolution.org, you can Google that. All right, thank you very much, Frank.
We'll keep let's get all of our Merced compadres. I'd like to bring Charles Perez up to the microphone. Charles, one of the curators at the Merced Multicultural Arts Center. The man can come on up. And he has facilitated over 50 Fresno artists being able to show up there in front. We do the Los Muertos over there every year. So we've already shown more than 50 Fresno artists in Merced, opening up our artists to new venues and new fans and new people to be able to appreciate what they're doing. And in turn, we're also actually working with Fresno and Merced kind of have the thing where people don't realize how much artistic talent is in these smaller communities. So the more that we can kind of feature each other, the more people realize, wow, it's happening in Merced, and people in Merced are like, wow, it's happening in Fresno. So put your hands together for Charles Perez.
Thank you, Frank. And again, it's a pleasure also to be here. It's amazing for both Richard, myself, Ruben, and Oscar. I don't know if Oscar's here. Who are four of us have been able to participate. And having known Frank over the past couple of years, having the opportunity, thanks to Ruben, bringing us in connection with ArteAmericas. It's been amazing. From starting as an artist, working with the Dia de los Muertos with Ruben a few years back to a couple of years ago to be able to now be the curator for Dia de los Muertos at the MAC has been really a great experience in itself, both from a design and an art standpoint. But most of all, for me personally, it has to do with the tremendous amount of giving to the community, of being able to create with a great group of other creators, other talented people, with a great director like Colton, who's here. And what is happening with the MAC is tremendous. It is really evolving. And it's one of those things, yes, as Richard has said, and also as Frank has said, it's like art in Merced, it's like farms in Berkeley, but that's all turning around. At any rate, where do I live? I live 2 miles away from Richard in Atwater. I originally grew up there, in and out of there since my family was a military family out of Castle. Myself, I was educated both in art and design. And consequently, over the vast majority of my life, I've both been artist, designer, design director, and educator. And through that all, again, it's about loving what I do, and I've been really blessed. From a design standpoint and a design director, I ran 2 major companies, design studios with my partners in San Francisco, doing commercial design for various companies and corporations around the world, from Japan to India to Mexico and throughout the United States and around. That in itself has taken me around the world, and it's that exposure to various cultures, to the idea of working with a broad range of creatives, from architects to engineers to designers to graphic designers to merchandisers to fashion designers, the whole breadth of creativity in a brick and mortar fashion. All along the way, though, I have always been true to myself as being an artist and haven't forgotten that. I maintain that connection to my art through painting, through drawing, through mixed media, through installations, temporary installations, for example, like at Burning Man and Green Art, etc. Today, what you see here in the gallery is my digital work, and it's something that I've discovered over the last few years. The beauty of it, for me, is that I'm able to create all these ideas that have been bouncing around in my head and just been sketches for decades, and to be able to actually manifest them in the digital media. But I've also been looking into digital media and expanding it out and applying it for mixed media. That's another direction. The other part that I love doing is it's an experimental process. And again, as artists, I believe that it's imperative that we be experimenting constantly, always looking outside of what we are comfortable in. And one of the things I'm doing, and a lot of my inspiration besides my travels around the world and the various cultures, is the idea of nature. And in my particular end, in terms of studying it and experimenting with it, is creating with nothing, virtually. The idea of allowing nature to provide within an area what will be my media to work with, whether it's the weeds or castor bean plants or whatever that comes out of it, and basically looking at a life, birth, life, death, and transformation cycle. That is a big theory, that is a big theme within my work. So whether it's digital art to experimental elements in terms of constructs along the lines of Andy Goldsworthy, if any of you are familiar with him, who works in nature and it's not about creating pieces that will then go into a gallery and hopefully be sold to someone. But there's no attachment. The only thing as an artist is the idea of being able to create with whatever is given at hand. And that steps outside the bounds. And to say that nothing can stop us, even if we're out in the desert. If we have a rake, we can rake sand, we can create. If we're at the beach, we can create. So that's one of my other major things I love doing, is the idea of constantly experimenting. Influences, all the various cultures and travels around the world, surrealism, transformation, birth, death, and the cycle of life, and that's another big involvement is in terms of Dietelis Mortis. And that to me just wraps it all up, all together. Having the opportunity and the privilege to be able to work with the MAC, both as a design director, as a curator, and as an artist, to me is a godsend. And I just continue to commit to it, and it brings me great joy. As far as what I will do in the future, I'm just going to take that all up and let it just bubble up, and we'll see. Thank you.
Charles Perez, Ruben Sanchez, we are sitting amidst Ruben's work here, and Ruben's been a great compadre to ArteAmericas. And so Ruben's anecdote that I get to put on Ruben is that I put a show together in Los Angeles this last July, and in order to maximize the number of artists that I could show down there, I told all the artists I'm only going to be able to show one of your pieces. So send me 3 pieces, I'm going to choose one of those 3, and that'll be in the show. So Ruben had a 100% chance of being at a show in Los Angeles. And then he says, you know what, I have a friend, I want him to send a piece. So if he sends 1 piece, Ruben, he can only send me with 2 pieces. It's like, all right, I'll do that for my friend. His friend's here, in fact. And then a couple days before I'm going to go pick up the artwork, he's like, I got this other friend, you got to see his work. I said, Ruben, there's no room for anyone else's work on the show. Tell him next time. Like, no, I already told him. So Ruben went from a 100% chance of being in a show in Los Angeles to a 33.3% chance at it being in a show in Los Angeles. And I said, you know, what if I pick one of your friends? He's like, well, you know, they do great work. So I had Ruben bring 3 pieces anyway. I wasn't going to be a jerk and be like, sorry, Ruben, bring 1. So he did bring 3. They're in the process of selling one of the pieces down there in Los Angeles. And just through that sort of nature as who he is as a person, and that's who he is with other artists. And as you see, his work is vibrant and incredible and beautiful. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Ruben Sanchez.
I think he says, well, I was down to questions and talk to you about a little bit of my art. Where do you live? I live in Merced, California. I'm born in Fresno here, and most of my life has been in Merced. And what inspires your artwork? I think there's so many things. I look around the room here, and everything here inspires me, and I think most of it is the love of art. And I think that's what it is. And we're all here because of that, the love of art. The love of the line, the love of the sunset, the love of a sandcastle, the love of our clothes, the love of our car. I mean, everything around us is art. And that's what keeps us going, because we love that. We love our shoes, we love the design, we love our coat. We love the little clothes for our child. This is all art. But we never think of those terms. We think, well, you know, a painting and so on. But all around us, constantly, the building we're in now, it's a design. And that's what inspires me. There's a never-ending story, and it's around us constantly. And we need to always keep that inspiration there within our hearts, within ourselves. And that's what it is. I was born in Merced. I grew up there. I went through the schools there and so on. But all through the life, I was a campesino, and I worked in the 50s with my mom. And part of the things I do is, and some of you have my art during that time, I cotton that bag. I remember an incident where my mom would chew the picking cotton, and there was no really way of babysitting during those times. So she said, well, just play with the cotton bag, you know. And so I'm always jumping on it, playing with the cotton. And so this was with me. And so as time went on, as I grew up and got into doing my art, I remember those times. And so I made the cotton bag into a woman figure. And I remember one day I was we were at home in the morning, I was shaving, I was listening to the news, and they were talking to the gentleman. He says, yeah, and I remember when the cotton bag, and with my babysitter, and wait a minute, this guy is talking my language. What do you mean the babysitter? So I went to check it out. I don't know why I was expecting to see, because he was from the South, I was expecting to see a black man. But no, he was a white dude. So that's interesting. I said, well, okay. So what made me open up, he was honoring his mom. The whole book that he wrote, he was an author, he was writing about his mother. And he was honoring his mother, the experience that he had growing up in the fields there in the South. And I thought, oh, wow, that's interesting. So what made me realize that everything we do here, and that's what's amazing about the Valley, that's what what Richard said, we're from the Valley. I always say, wow, sorry to lie. You know, and what it is that we're from here, we're all connected, because we live in a very rich area of California, in the Valley. We have fruits and vegetables, we see it, we enjoy it. Remember this summer I went with my son John, we went to Oregon. And I remember I said, well, I'm gonna have a salad we were having there. So I gotta make myself a salad. And so I went into the store, and a little piece of cabbage, I think it was, no, cauliflower. It was $8. And I mean, I'm not joking, the sucker was this big. And I said, wait a minute, I'll just keep eating what I'm eating. I'm not gonna buy a salad, I'm just forget about it. But what I mean, we forget that we live in an area here that we have our produce, our vegetables, we get them pretty well at a good price. It's inexpensive compared to the rest of the country. Especially if you live in England or Japan, I mean, the suckers are high there. I mean, I remember one time, a friend, because I worked in a flea market during that was part of my business that I did with my family. And I remember one of the customers came over, we were talking about Fuji apples. And he said, you know, I went to, because he was from India, he said, we went to India and we stopped in Japan. And then there was this huge Fuji apples. So I got one and I put on a table pay. It says $11. It's $11 for one Fuji apple, and my friends were with me, and I couldn't back off because, it was embarrassing, so I bought the Fuji apple. But I said, no way, Jose, but, that's the way it is, Well, that's the way it is. I mean, if you live on an island, you live somewhere, the things are really expensive. But here, it's amazing. Another experience what happened to me, talking about the valley, which really hit me because when I was in Mexico, I was doing it's one thing after another. But what I wanted to say overall, and I don't want to take forever because what's amazing is because I have a show, Frank was very, and then ArteAmericas was very open to have, and this is a lifetime of work here that I have here. Over the years, it wasn't done one day to the next. It was just 1 year, maybe one painting or two. Next year, maybe one painting or two. Over the years. But I constantly tried to, and I think now the fashion is, during the 70s, you could, an artist, an art gallery would kind of maintain the artists, inspiring the artists that they thought that they have a chance. Now it's not that way at all. Now it's very well expected as an artist to somehow make a living at whatever you do, and you can do your art on the side. De Kooning, he would do part-time, he worked part-time, and then full-time as an artist. Other artists would work differently in the past. Picasso was the exception. The guy was a millionaire by 40. I mean, he was just fantastic. He could live off his art. But none of us, a lot of us, and thousands, and we're not just taking thousands of us are in the same boat. We work, we make our bread and day, we maintain our family, but at the side, maybe in the middle of the night, or 2 in the morning, we're doing our art. And it's because of the love of art we want to do it, and expressing ourselves. And so this is the way it is now, and so and so on. In terms of what is your dream project, I think I've done a lot already in terms of my dreams, but I just try to continue on. But as a fun thing that I want to do with you, I want to do a mural for you, an air mural. So just be patient and just imagine, open yourselves up, and imagine yourselves seeing a mural done before you. Okay? Okay. Now first we're going to get a bucket, and we're going to splash it on the wall. Then we're going to go ahead and spread it around. Okay? Then, for my style, I'm going to do the sun. So I said sol. The sun, it warms us. It gives us warmth. It helps grow our crops. It just gives us something to see. It's just beautiful. In the morning, you see the crack of dawn, you see it. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, I put the mountains. And then you see right now you see the snow on the mountains. Beautiful. It's there forever. They've been there forever and ever. Okay, we do that right there. And then we do the morning yellow around the sun, and then slowly we build it into blue, and then slowly we put the darkness of sky and the darkness of night, and then we put the stars there. Yeah, we do that. Wow. All these stars here. And then we have the water that comes down from the snow. And then we have, let's make the roads for the irrigation. Oh, wow, ain't that beautiful? And that will grow the crops for us. And then we peel off, we pick, and we peel off, and we eat the fruit. So thank you so much.
Ruben Sanchez, wow. I'm gonna steal that idea one of these days. What I'm gonna do, no. I just thought of something. I won't do that, Ruben.
And I'm here with
Richard Gomez. Well, yeah, I mean, the valley is just one part of this beautiful state. We have the Bay, we have SoCal, and we have the Central Valley. So just kind of bridging the three main parts together, and maybe getting out of state as well. But this is California, right? This is the West Coast. This is where the spot to be. So the California is, really standing out in a lot of these trying times that we're in right now. So I think it's really exciting right now to be an artist and to have the opportunity to comment on a lot of these issues that are happening nationwide.
And what I just thought of, speaking with you just now, is that art a while ago took a while to connect to others, but now that we have so many ways to interview each other and see artwork being sent before we actually see the piece in person. So how have you used social media or modern technology to change your art from when you started back in the day?
Well, number one, I use Instagram for my website, Profe R. Gomez.
All right.
So yeah, that's really fun, and through Instagram, man, I've been able to see what other artists are doing all over the world, and that's what's really awesome and fascinating is to see what's happening in Japan and all over Europe, and having people follow me from Japan and Europe and New York, and so that's really interesting, and to see all these different techniques and styles of everybody.
So, well, thank you so very much, and it was a pleasure, and I get to check you out on Instagram, and thank you very much.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Hello, buenos días. Yo soy aquí de ArteAmericas, la Casa de la Cultura. And with me is one of the artists and also a curator in Madeira, is it?
Merced.
Merced. And I'm going to have him introduce himself.
I'm Charles Perez, artist, designer, curator, and educator.
I know the list goes on. And I have the pleasure of standing in front of some of his work here, and you'll be able to see a little bit more of that as we go on. I think Frank pretty much had everything already stated and settled of what you were going to discuss. So
Absolutely.
Is there anything you want to add to what you already told us?
Well, to me, just the process, first of all, as an artist, I always feel that all of us, whether we're painters, sculptors, dancers, musicians, however how we're creating, when we're given that, we are truly blessed people. I mean, to be able to know and to have that clarity of what we are doing in our lives or what we're going to do in our lives, not to have to worry about, oh, what's my life all about? That was always, to me, is always one of the biggest gifts that's ever been given to me, is that clarity of purpose. I worked for corporations for a while. I said, great, I don't want to work in a corporation, but I want to work with a corporation on my own terms. So I do it. That's how I established my design companies.
And isn't it great that art facilitates that?
Exactly. I mean, design, again, is in a practical sense. It deals with pragmatics. It serves the human spirit, the safety, health, etc., and experience. But the difference, again, then the aesthetics, my other side as an artist, where aesthetics are completely pure. It's not for a practical purpose, insofar as it's not something to sit on, it's not something to walk within necessarily. But art is something that serves serves our spirit, serves our heart, it serves others.
Yes, which leads me to a question. So when it comes down to commerce and art, have you had to like put the brakes on a bit when someone wanted you to do something artistically that you weren't willing to do?
When it comes to art, no, there's no compromise in that regard, because in that, for me, when it comes down to that, if there are certain parameters set, that to me is design. I mean, that's what I've done for 40 years. You know, a corporation will say, well, we want a store, we want a brand, we want, a piece of architecture or a restaurant built. Okay, and so...
Can't be bought.
No, not at all. The idea, that would be just... It just goes against the grain, you know. I mean, we have to be true to ourselves for it to be authentic.
Thank you so very much. And that's where we're going to end it, because, yes, for it to be authentic. Thank you so very much. It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Oh, he has. Thank you. My name is Marlene. Hi, and I have a show on YouTube. It's about extraordinary people and places in Fresno and California. And, sir, you fit the bill. Ruben Sanchez here. Frank pretty much had you discuss what you wanted to do. So I'm asking, was there anything that you wanted to say right when you sat down and said, oh, I wanted to mention that?
I think basically art is just saying that, the role of an artist in society is very difficult. And I always say that they took a lot of the arts out of the schools, and I think that was a mistake because being an artist or even being a creative person, I'm always interested in the creative juices, the creative artists, the songwriters, the musicians, the sculptors, the writers, the poets. We're all tied in one way or the other into the creative process, and I include myself in that in terms of as an artist. I always like the scene in the Ed Harrison movie Jackson Pollock, where he's looking at a painting and he's kind of drips some paint, and then from there he starts doing more, and finally he's just going at it. And I think that's the thing, that we always have to think outside the box, and if we can do that, that will help a lot in terms of the children, in terms of elementary school and so on, and the world, to be creative, to work things out. There's always, my dad would have a favorite saying, there's always there's always a way around everything except for death. And I really think that's true, because you can always work around it, but you have to be creative about it. And there's always a way, but you have to be creative about it. And you can, people say to me, hey, I can't draw a straight line, but neither can I. I'll use a ruler. And it's not trying to put anything down. What I'm just saying is that,
Make a way.
There's a way of doing it. It doesn't, being creative or whatever, I mean, doing a line is what you do the line. Make the curves, make the figure, make the tree. That line can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be a lot of things. And that's one thing that we always need to remember, that we're all creative people. Either be a handprint, and what fascinates me always, the prehistoric handprints on the caves and so on, they started with just a handprint and designed the environment around them. Same thing, artists now. We paint, we put the handprint into our paintings, and we do the environment around us. And whether it be here in the valley or we be in the city. If I was from the city, my art would be totally different. And if I was from back in the South, my art would be different. It's just we assume we're like sponges. We take in whatever's around us as artists. And that's why we're all different. And that's what I love about art.
And we get to learn about each other. So
Right.
thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you so much. And it's a great being in ArteAmericas. Frank Delgado is a great inspiration because he's helping artists. He really works with them. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Take care of
Oh,
yourself.
he has me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care of yourself.
I will. You do the same.
Thank you.
Helping the world.